moment to relax. And it helps you to feel more comfortable in your somewhat alien role and unique role of being a juror. But please understand, any attempts at humor should never detract from the seriousness and the importance of what it is we are doing here today. There is no more serious a criminal case in our system of justice than one involving the death of another person, and this case, as you know, is critically important to both the Commonwealth and to the defendant, each of which have the right to your fair and impartial consideration of the evidence and your conscientious judgments as jurors. So please don't read anything into any comments that have been made or any levity during the course of these proceedings. This is, as you know, a very serious proceeding. And with that said, let us turn to the Commonwealth for further evidence. Mr. Hagan.
Your Honor, the Commonwealth calls Robert Lindsey.
Stop your face, quick, right now.
Sir, do you solemnly swear the testimony you should give this court and jury and the issue now pending between the Commonwealth and the defendant at the bar shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you, sir. Kindly follow the oath.
Push this. Let's see, right.
May I inquire on?
Mr. Hagan.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Would you please introduce yourself to ladies and gentlemen of the jury and spell your last name for the record?
How you doing? I'm Robert Lindsey, Lindsey.
How old are you, sir?
35.
Are you employed?
Yes, I am.
What type of work do you do, sir?
I'm a team lead at a produce place
And is that in the state of Connecticut?
in the state of Connecticut.
Are you married and do you have any children, sir?
Yes. I have 4 kids,
What are their ages?
17, 11, 7, and 1 years old.
And sir, are you here voluntarily today or were you subpoenaed?
No, I'm not here voluntary. I was subpoenaed, and I did not want to come up here.
And Mr.
No,
Lindsey,
we're-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I had to take the day off to come up here.
And Mr. Lindsey, is
Yeah.
it fair to state that prior attempts by Boston Police homicide detectives to speak with you, you didn't want to speak to them?
No,
I don't think that
I couldn't really hear you.
when the prior attempts from Boston Police detectives to speak to you, were you willing to speak with them?
No,
Mr. Lindsey, what is your relationship with Alexander Sherrod Bradley?
that's my cousin.
And have you known him most of your life?
Yes.
Mr. Lindsey, I'm going to call your attention now to a particular date of February 14th, 2013, the day after your cousin Alexander Bradley was shot. Do you recall receiving a telephone call from Mr. Bradley, your cousin?
Yes, I did.
And did you recognize the voice on the other end of the line?
Yes.
And whose voice did you recognize it to be?
It was my cousin, Sherrod Alexander Bradley.
And please tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what did Alexander Bradley tell you on February 14th, 2013 in that phone call?
Aaron shot me in my eye, and he told me to get a hold of his baby mother.
What did he tell you to do with Brooke?
He told to give him a call.
To have Brooke give him a call?
To give him a call to down in Florida.
When he said Aaron, did you know who he was talking about?
Yes,
Who was he talking about?
Aaron Hernandez.
And had you known of him before that date?
Have I known of him?
Did you know who he was, Aaron
Yes.
Hernandez?
Yes, I did.
And did you know what the relationship was between Aaron Hernandez and your cousin Sherrod up to that point?
Yes,
What was that, sir?
they were like real good friends, best friends.
After Alexander Bradley told you that Aaron had shot him in the face and to talk to Brooke, did you go talk to Brooke?
Yes,
Did you tell her what had happened to Alex?
yes, and she broke down crying.
And did you instruct her to call Alex?
Yes, I did.
Thank you very much, sir. I have no further questions.
Mr. Vyas.
May it please the court. Mr. Hagan. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Alexander Bradley is your cousin,
Yes, he is.
and you know he's a drug dealer, right?
I assume so, yes.
Okay. You know he's a drug trafficker, significant amounts of drugs, correct?
What's that?
You know he's a drug trafficker, that he traffics significant amount of drugs, right?
Objection to the president's answer to that question.
No, overruled.
You can answer.
I guess.
Okay. And
No,
you,
yes, do you know or not know?
Yes, I guess. I mean, I know he deal with, like, big guys or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, buying big stuff, you know what I'm saying?
now, did you ever turn over your phone records to the Commonwealth?
Turn over my phone records?
Yes.
No. I didn't have nothing to do with anything, so.
Okay. Did they ever ask you for your phone?
No.
Okay, so they never asked you, and he called you on your cell phone?
What's that?
Alexander Bradley called you on your cell phone?
Yes, he did.
And do you and Alexander Bradley exchange texts during this time?
Did we exchange texts?
Yeah, at any time?
No.
During this Florida shooting thing?
No.
Okay. You had to pause for a second. Are you sure?
Did we exchange texts, like?
Yeah. Did you, during the course of the days that he was in the hospital, exchange text messages with him?
I think I did, yeah. I exchanged texts with him.
Okay. So he had a cell phone that he was able to text you from, right?
Yes.
Okay. And was it the same number that you always known him to have?
I mean, I don't. It was so long ago. Yeah, I think it was. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know.
Okay. And now, after this, you apparently called Brooke.
Did I call her? I didn't call her. I went upstairs. She used to live upstairs from me.
Okay. And is that when Brooke finally called Alex?
She cried for a while. You know what I'm saying? I let her know everything that went on, and I don't know if she called exactly right then and there. You know what I'm saying? But it was so long ago.
Now, were you involved with having discussions with Alex when he decided that he was going to sue Aaron?
No, sir.
Okay. So the text messages indicating that they're from his cousin, that wouldn't be you?
The text messages?
Yeah, if there were text messages indicating that the person texting Mr. Bradley is his cousin, that's not you? That's another cousin?
I think it was me.
Okay. So were you the person that texted Mr. Bradley that once Aaron signed his contract that he should get all of that money?
No, sir.
Okay, so that wasn't you, or you made no statements to that effect?
No.
Okay. If I can have just a moment, Judge. No further questions.
Thank you, sir. You may step down, please. Watch your step.
Thank you.
Commonwealth.
Commonwealth calls Detective Paul McIsaac.
Let's go ahead to the officer.
Stuff your face, raise right hand.
Sir, do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give this court and jury and the issue now pending between the Commonwealth and the defendant at the bar shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do. Thank you, sir. Kindly follow the officer.
Watch step, please. Money, Your Honor.
Mr. Hagan.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Would you please introduce yourself to the ladies and gentlemen of the jury and spell your last name for the record?
Good morning. My name is Paul McIsaac. My last name is spelled MACISAAC.
Are you employed by the Boston Police Department, sir?
I am.
What is your rank?
I'm a detective.
Detective McIsaac, would you explain for the jurors and the court during your how long you've been with the Boston Police Department?
I'm in my 29th year.
During that 29-year career with the Boston Police Department, sir, can you describe what areas or units you've been assigned to?
1988, I was a patrol officer in District 2, which is the Roxbury section of the city. In 1998, I was promoted to the rank of detective. I went to District 11 of the city. I was there for 12 years, and then I was recruited to the homicide unit in 2010.
How long have you been a homicide detective then? Is that 7 years?
7 years, yes.
During that 7 years as a homicide detective with the City of Boston Police Department, approximately how many homicide investigations have you handled?
Oh, dozens.
Detective McIsaac, I'm going to call your attention now to a particular homicide, that being the July 16, 2012 homicides of Safira Furtado and Daniel Diabreu. Were you ultimately assigned to that case?
I was.
And describe, if you would, what the on-call status was that night, the early morning hours of July 16, 2012. Were you part of a squad, and if so, how was it that you were assigned the case?
We were on an on-call schedule, and that particular night, my squad was assigned to respond to all deaths in the city that night.
And how many people were in your squad at that point?
There was 3 of us.
And who were the other 2 besides yourself?
There was Sergeant Detective Mark Sullivan, he's our supervisor, and my partner is Detective Joshua Cummings.
Your partner, Detective Cummings, do you recall whether or not he was in that night working or on vacation?
He took the night off.
Calling your attention now, sir, to a call. Are you aware of the time of the call that it came in for the shooting that led to the deaths of Daniel Diabreu and Safira Furtado?
Yes, it was 2:32 a.m.
2:32 a.m. the first call came in?
That'd be correct.
Shortly after 2:32 a.m., did you receive either a phone call or some other type of notification?
Yes, we were using a page system back then. I received a page to contact the operations division.
And about what time did that page come in, if you know?
I would call it 2:46 a.m.
After receiving the page at about 2:46, Detective, when did you arrive at the scene?
3:08 a.m.
And upon your arrival at approximately 3:08 a.m., can you describe just generally for the jurors what you observed at the scene, and in particular if it was secured in any way?
Yes, upon my arrival, the scene was secured with yellow crime scene tape and officers guarding the perimeter of the crime scene.
And did you make observations at that point of the vehicle itself?
Yes.
Describe generally what you observed.
The vehicle stopped. It was, excuse me, it was on Sharman Ave, close to Harold Street. If you're coming down Sharman towards Harold, in the left-hand lane.
And did you notice anything relative to whether or not the car itself or the bodies of the decedents were sheeted in any way?
Yes, they were.
And had you had anything to do with that, or was it already like that?
It was like that when I arrived.
And what about vehicular traffic? Was that blocked off in any way that you recall?
Yes.
How was it blocked off, sir?
It was blocked off back at Marginal and Shawmut. It was blocked off from Tremont and Herald. And then it's a one-way, a couple of ways, so there wasn't a concern.
Upon your arrival at the scene, Detective, were you briefed by other officers and senior officers and detectives?
Yes.
And who was that?
Sergeant Detective Sullivan, Sergeant McHale, and Sergeant McCarthy.
After being briefed, or perhaps even before, did you make any observations of potential physical evidence at the scene?
Yes.
What did you observe, sir?
I observed the vehicle. I observed 2 bodies that were seated in the vehicle, one in the front seat passenger and one in the driver's seat. I walked around the vehicle, looking inside. There's 2 open doors in the rear. I saw a cell phone that was on the back seat, and I saw there was blood on the right rear quarter panel of the vehicle, and there was blood droplets around the vehicle heading down towards Harold and Sharman.
What about any glass at the scene? Did you see any glass?
Yes, I'm sorry. The left rear passenger, that window was smashed, and there was glass on the ground and glass inside the vehicle.
What about the lighting conditions at that scene, Detective? Did you make any observations of that?
Yes, I did.
What observations did you make?
There was street lights. There was 2 back at the corner of Harold and Marginal. There was 1 on the corner of Harold and Shawmut, and then there was 1 across the street at Harold and Shawmut.
And again, keeping in mind that the jurors have been there as part of a view, did you make any observations of the width of the street being Shawmut Avenue as it intersected with Harold?
The exact width?
Not the exact width, but approximate.
I've received information it's around 36 feet or so.
Now, Detective, after making the observations you described and obtaining the briefings you've also described, were you asked, or did you on your own decide to go somewhere to interview a potential witness?
Yes.
And where did you go, sir?
I went to the Tufts Medical Center.
And before we get to what you did at Tufts Medical Center, did you make any observations about whether or not other civilian witnesses were present at the scene and whether they were kept in a certain area?
Yes, I did.
What did you observe in that regard?
They were on Harold Street to the left of Sharman Avenue.
Now, you indicated you went to Tufts Medical Center. What was your purpose in going to Tufts Medical Center?
To interview a person by the name of Aquilino Freire.
When you got to the hospital, were you able to gain access to Aquilino Freire?
Yes, I was.
Can you describe what observations, if any, you made of Mr. Freire's injuries?
He was in an exam bay. He had a bandage from about here to his elbow on his right forearm, and he had a Band-Aid just on his left forearm.
The left forearm, was there anything other than a Band-Aid?
No, it was a Band-Aid.
And did you have a chance to speak to Mr. Freire?
I did.
Did you record that?
I did not.
Why not, sir?
Well, he was just shot. He had a bullet wound to his right forearm. He was distraught. He knew his two friends had passed away.
Do you know how he knew his two friends had passed away? Had you told him that, or something?
No, I did not tell him. He knew.
You said he was distraught. What did you observe about that?
He was crying. He was crying. He was distraught. It wasn't conducive for recording. Plus, we were in an exam bay. There were nurses coming in and out. There was people walking by. It just wasn't conducive for recording.
Now, sir, were you made aware at that point of whether or not any physical evidence may have been removed from Mr. Freire by hospital personnel?
Yes, I was.
What were you made aware of, sir?
He had a bullet removed from his right forearm.
And did you become aware, detective, as to where that bullet was sent?
I was sent to the pathology lab.
I'm calling your attention to a subsequent date of July 20th, 2012. Did you go and retrieve that bullet?
I did.
When you retrieved the bullet, what did you do with it?
I packaged it, and then I submitted to the firearms analysis unit.
Additionally, Detective MacIsaac, upon your stay or the time that you were at the Tufts Medical Center, did you obtain any clothing purportedly belonging to Aquilino Freire?
I did.
And what did you do with that clothing?
I examined it, I packaged it, and I submitted to the crime lab for further investigation.
And where had you gotten that clothing from?
I got that from Officer Eric James.
After speaking to Mr. Freire and obtaining the clothing of Mr. Freire, did you go back to the crime scene at Harold and Sharman?
Yes, I did.
Describe what was now occurring upon your arrival back at the crime scene.
Upon my arrival back, they were in the process of photographing the vehicle.
And at that point, had cones been placed, or was it photographing before the cones
Yes,
were placed?
crime scene response unit had responded. It placed marking cones and a little orange indicators for blood droplets.
Upon your arrival and observing that the crime scene was now being processed by the crime scene response unit, were you also made aware, detective, as to whether or not a street sweeper had been brought back to the scene to be interviewed?
Yes, I was.
And in fact, did you have the opportunity to interview someone purportedly a street sweeper by the name of Warren McMasters?
I did.
And after interviewing Mr. McMasters, detective, did you do anything else relative to that street sweeper?
No, I did not.
And was that based upon the conversation with Mr. McMasters?
That is correct.
Calling your attention now to, as the scene processing progressed, detective, were you part of a decision made as to the removal of the car with the bodies of Mr. Furtado and Mr. DiBreo still in it?
Yes, I was.
And describe, if you were to explain, what was decided and why.
The decision was to remove the vehicle to Boston Police Headquarters. We were going to apply for a search warrant to remove the bodies and to examine the car for evidence.
And sir, at this point, were the sheets still over the bodies?
That's correct.
Did you make any observations about whether or not media had also started to come to the scene?
Yes, they were.
And in your experience as a homicide detective, MacIsaac, have you, in other situations, applied for search warrants for cars in which victims were shot?
Yes, I have.
And would you say that's a standard procedure?
Yes.
Why is that, sir?
In homicide, the standard practice is to get a search warrant to remove evidence from a person's home, a car, things of that nature.
Sir, at some point after the car was towed from the scene, did you remain on scene?
Yes, I did.
And can you describe what, if any, searches were conducted, and particular ones that you participated in?
Yes. Sergeant Detective Duff and I from the Crime Scene Response Unit, we examined, there's a fence to the left of the vehicle on Sharman Ave. We examined that wall for ballistics damage. And also later, I participated in a line search. We started from fence to fence across Harold Street and went corner to corner, Harold from Shawmut to Marginal.
And what is a line search exactly? How many officers were participating?
I don't remember how many officers participated, but we had enough to cross the street. You stand a few feet apart and walk forward slowly, examining the ground directly in front of you.
And other than what was marked by crime scene response unit personnel, was any other evidence collected from that line search, being from the corner of Harold and Shawmut all the way to Shawmut and Marginal?
No, there wasn't.
What time were you able to clear the scene, so to speak, or leave that scene, detective?
A little after 5, it was 5:08, around there?
5:08 a.m.?
Yes, that's correct.
Were you present later on that afternoon, detective, when a search warrant was executed on the BMW in the Boston Police Department exam bay?
Yes, I was.
And had you applied?
Heard all of this from other witnesses.
Overruled.
And did you apply for a search warrant of that car?
I did.
And were you present for the processing of the car and of the bodies?
I was.
And did you secure some evidence from within that car, sir?
Yes.
What did you secure?
The body of Mr. Furtado and the body of Mr. Abreu. There was a black leather woman's handbag, a wristlet. There was a spent bullet, a bullet fragment, a copper jacketed projectile. There was also a black iPhone from the rear seat and a T-Mobile cell phone from the rear seat that was in Mr. Abreu's lap.
And in particular, the cell phones, were those taken by you?
Yes, they were.
The other items that you talked about, with the exception of perhaps the change or the purse, were those taken by crime scene response unit personnel?
That is correct.
And the sheets that the bodies were covered in, detective, you're aware of whether or not those were also collected?
Objection, Judge. This has all been testified to.
I'll see you at sidebar. Mr. Hagan.
Now, detective, you indicated that the sheets were also secured as evidence, is that correct?
There was 4 of them, actually.
And sir, at some point, the bodies of Mr. Furtado and Mr. Dubreuil searched, and anything on their person was held as evidence, is that correct?
That's correct.
And that would include identifications, money, or anything like that?
It was removed, yes.
And were there any drugs found on the bodies of Mr. Furtado or Mr. Dubreuil?
There were not.
Any other illegal substances or anything that you know of recovered from their bodies?
No.
I'm calling your attention now to the following day, July 17, 2012. Detective, did you attend the autopsies that were performed upon Mr. Dubreuil and Mr. Furtado?
I did.
And did you take custody of any evidence that was purportedly removed, or actually, was the removal of items done in your presence?
Yes.
And what was handed to you as potential evidence from the bodies of either Mr. Dubreuil or Mr. Furtado?
Mr. Furtado had a bullet removed from his head and along with some bullet fragments.
And did you secure those and take those to a specialized unit of the Boston Police Department?
I did.
Where was that, sir?
The Firearms Analysis Unit.
Detective, guys, I'm calling attention now to July 19th, 2012. Did you conduct recorded interviews of Donald Gobin and Brian Kwan?
I did.
Now, Detective, I want to call your attention to any work you in particular did relative to a video canvas of the area, both at Club Cure and Shawmut Avenue and Harold Street, where the crime scene was. Calling your attention to 2 dates being July 18th and July 23rd. Did you conduct a video canvas?
I did.
And I'm going to place on your screen in front of you Exhibit 4A. Do you recognize that, sir, to be an overhead diagram of the area that includes both the crime scene at Shawmut and Harold as well as Club Cure, sir?
I do.
When you conducted the video canvas on those 2 dates, Detective, were you aware that the victims had allegedly been in Club Cure earlier that night?
Yes, I did.
And describe, if you would, Detective, what search you did for video and what the results were.
We started with, it was Sergeant Sullivan and I think Detective Cummings. We did the Tremont Street. There were several cameras outside of Cure. There was a couple of cameras on the awning. There was one out inside, right out in front of the Wilbur. Now, Cure's in the basement of the Wilbur Theater, so there's one outside the Wilbur. And several months earlier, we had another homicide investigation down that area, so I was familiar with all the cameras that were along Tremont Street. I knew the Tufts Garage had an exterior camera and two interior cameras just inside the garage entrance and exit area. If you go across the street on Tremont Street,
Actually, if I could just interrupt you there, Detective, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm just going to place on the screen Exhibit 36A. You testified about the Tufts cameras. Did you have a chance to go in and determine what cameras were in existence then in July of 2012?
Yes, I was aware those cameras already existed.
And other than the cameras of the entrance and the exit and the exterior that you see here, were there any other cameras in 2012 on the Tufts Garage?
No, back then, no.
Now, relative to the area we see depicted here, is there a stairwell that leads to the parking garage itself?
Yes, just inside the door, there's a red door. That's the stairwell. And around that little corner there's elevators.
And from your experience in that area, were there any cameras that covered those areas?
They did not.
I'm sorry, Detective, I interrupted you. You indicated that you were, after looking at Tufts and obtaining video from Tufts, you were looking at other areas as well?
Yes, from my prior investigation, I knew the cameras on, let's stick with the side of the street where Cure and Tufts are. If you go a little farther down, there's a parking lot there with a little a shack, if you will, for the attendant. There was no cameras for that parking lot. I believe there are today, but back then in 2012, there were no cameras. The next one down is the YMCA. They have an exterior patio camera that at nighttime is only activated by motion activated. So that didn't record. It would record only certain things. Like, it was weird. Police lights or ambulance lights would activate the motion camera going down Tremont. But other than that, it wouldn't be activated. On the other side of the street, the Caprice Lounge did not have any exterior cameras. The Courtyard Marriott had a lobby cam that didn't catch the front. Next down is the Variety Store. Back then, they had an old system. It was actually VHS still, and all the lights were turned off at nighttime, and he had advertisements in the windows, so you couldn't see out anyways. Then there's a residential building, the next one down. The addresses are escaping me, I apologize, but there's a residential building, the next building down. Their camera has an internal camera that covers the door and the mailboxes, and there's a rear camera, there's a daycare center in there also. It covers the playground out back behind that building, just zeroes in on the playground.
So all the cameras you described, you looked into relative to your video canvas, is that correct?
Yes, on Tremont Street, yes.
And were you able to obtain any relevant video footage?
From the Tufts Garage and Cure nightclub.
Now, calling your attention to the area up on Stewart Street and Tremont, calling your attention to the W Hotel as well as the transportation building directly across the street on the corner. Can you describe what, if anything, you were able to recover or observe from there?
Yeah, the W Hotel, the only exterior cameras they have is the loading dock in the rear. So it shows the rear loading dock. The transportation building does have exterior cameras, and they were retrieved.
And the transportation building cameras that were retrieved, describe what that video shows, if anything.
The camera on Stewart Street actually shoots down at the sidewalk. It kind of covers more, there's a Panera Bread there. It kind of looks right at their exterior patio, their tables. It just sort of points right there.
So does it actually show people walking either on the sidewalk or the street on Stewart?
Not the street, but you can catch some sidewalk, but it's limited, I believe.
Detective McGuire, what about any searches that you did for video going back towards Nealon Street or the other direction?
I myself, a couple days later, went down Stewart, down Nealon Street, and did video canvas that way.
And were you able to obtain any video from that?
Yes, we got, I think we got 2 videos from down that area.
And did that video cover any relevant area, or did you retrieve any relevant footage from that?
No, we retrieved 2 videos. Some places the video didn't work. There was a lawyer's office that hasn't worked in a year. There was the hostel, International Hostel. Their camera was down at the time. There's an agricultural place there. They just point on a garage door. There was a store called Mate Asian. Their video only lasts a certain amount of time, and by the time I got there, it would already been recorded over. There's an electric shock store. I got video from there. And there's one other, I The name is escaping me at this moment.
And the other that the name's escaping, did you get video from there, or was there no video?
Yes, I think there was, yes.
And was anything relevant recovered from that video?
No, there wasn't.
Now, Detective, you've already testified to the fact that you were able to retrieve video from Club Cure, is that correct?
That's correct.
Just backing up for one moment, what was your exact assignment to this case? Meaning, did you have any specialized assignment within the squad?
Yes.
What was that, sir?
I was the case officer or the lead detective, if you will.
And for those who may not know, Detective, what does that mean?
I'm in charge of maintaining the file. I write all the search warrants, things of that nature.
But would you report to Sergeant Detective Sullivan?
Oh, Sergeant Sullivan's he's in overall command at all times.
And did you work hand in hand closely with your partner, Detective Cummings?
Yes.
Calling your attention now to the Cure video, Detective, were you able to view various footage from Club Cure, both in the inside and at least some portion of the inside?
Yes.
And then in the outside as well?
That's correct.
At some point, Detective, well, let me back up a moment. Would you ever, in such a case, and in this case, request just some of the video or all of the video?
All of the video.
Have you ever requested just some of the video in a nightclub when there's been an incident related to that?
No.
At some point, Detective, from viewing the video of Club Cure, did you become aware or have a suspicion that perhaps you had not received all the video?
Yes.
And based upon that realization, Detective, were you part of conversations to attempt to obtain all of the relevant video?
That's correct.
Detective, I'm just going to call your attention very briefly. At some point, did you focus on a particular SUV that you saw coming down the street?
Yes.
And is it fair to state, again, recognizing this jury has heard some of this already, that you identified that vehicle to be a Hyundai Santa Fe that appeared to be silverish in color?
That is correct.
And based upon that realization, was that made by you when you saw the vehicle?
Yes.
And did you go to Hyundai Santa Fe dealers and bring them a photograph of that?
Yeah, it's still photographs made. I went to a dealership. In my mind, it was a Hyundai Santa Fe. I wanted the confirmation. I went to a dealership, talked to the service people. I had 3 different servicemen look at the photograph, and they all identified it as a Hyundai Santa Fe.
And did they give you a year range for this Hyundai Santa Fe?
Sustained.
At some point, sir, you did an investigation of a potential Hyundai Santa Fe with Rhode Island plates, is that correct?
That is correct.
And based upon that, did you come up with any leads of any suspects?
None whatsoever.
In addition to the Hyundai Santa Fe investigation that you did you also speak to any persons that you knew may have interacted with the victim, Daniel D'Abreu, including a woman named Paige Ayala?
I did.
And did you also speak to other individuals in relation to that?
Yes.
Additionally, Detective, did you do what's oftentimes referred to investigation work as a victimology, meaning you interviewed people who knew the victims?
Correct.
And did you interview friends of Mr. D'Abreu and Mr. Furtado?
Yes.
Now, Detective, calling your attention now to June of 2013, is it fair to state that based upon developments in another investigation, you then focused your investigation in certain areas, is that correct?
That is correct.
And did that investigation include you as the lead detective trying to determine and focus on the movements of Aaron Hernandez in a certain vehicle?
That is correct.
I'm calling your attention now, Detective, to that effort. Did you then view the Cure video again and again at that point?
Yes, I watched the Cure video, and Detective Cummings was doing the Tufts video.
And during that review of the video, did something happen that caught your attention as a lead investigator?
Detective Cummings caught Detective Cummings' interest.
What was that?
He saw a
I'm sorry, were you saying we saw or he saw?
he saw, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Did you then see what he saw?
I did.
What did you see?
I saw a Toyota 4Runner, silver in color, Rhode Island plates, with Aaron Hernandez driving, exit the garage at Tufts.
Calling your attention now, Detective, to additional work that you did on this case in 2013. Calling your attention now to, at or around that time, did you request that the cellular telephone number, it's a 562 number, reportedly belonging to Aaron Hernandez, did you ask that all records be frozen for a subsequent search warrant?
I did.
And are you aware of whether or not that was done?
It was.
Calling your attention now to June 26th of 2013. Are you aware of whether or not, did you apply for a search warrant of an address in Connecticut?
The address, the date again, please?
114 Lake Avenue?
That would be on the 28th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Actually,
Let me rephrase the question.
Okay.
Did you become aware that a search warrant for another investigation was executed on June 26, 2013 at 114 Lake Avenue in Bristol?
yes, I am.
And after that, on June 28, 2013, was a search warrant executed by you and other Boston police detectives for that address?
Yes, there was a Connecticut search warrant. I sent down a affidavit, statement of facts to Bristol, Connecticut detectives, and they applied for the search warrant to search 114 Lake Avenue.
And ultimately, did you go down to 114 Lake Avenue pursuant to the search warrant?
I did.
And did you recover anything from that address?
We did.
What did you recover?
A 2006 Toyota 4Runner with the Rhode Island plates.
In addition to searching and ultimately retrieving or securing that 2006 Toyota 4Runner with the Rhode Island plates, did you also search the interior of the house?
I did.
What were you searching for? What did you have permission to search for relative to the warrant?
There was a bag in the house with Aaron Hernandez's name stitched on it. I was allowed to search that bag.
What were you looking for pursuant to the search warrant?
I was looking for clothing that Aaron Hernandez wore on the night of July 16, 2012.
And what was that clothing, if you recall?
There was it's a gray baseball hat with a red orange brim with the red orange design on it. It was a gray T-shirt with several colors on the design in front. It was mainly white, had some red and green, I believe. It was a pair of gray and white sneakers, and he had on a like a beaded necklace with a medallion, and then a large set of rosary beads on it with the cross.
And were any of those items retrieved or found at 114 Lake Avenue?
No, they weren't.
Now, Detective, just backing up very briefly, you indicated that you observed the surveillance video and you saw the Toyota 4Runner with Rhode Island plates that you eventually tied to Mr. Hernandez. Is that correct?
Correct.
Did you see any other potential silver SUVs, even a 4Runner, that left the garage at somewhat around the same time?
Yes.
I'm calling your attention now to what's been entered as Exhibit 281 and Exhibit 280. Did you observe that SUV leaving the garage at approximately 2:16 a.m.?
Yes.
And was there anything about your observations of the vehicle that caused you to not focus on it as a suspect vehicle?
Yes, there was.
What was that, sir?
Massachusetts plates.
Detective, calling your attention now to the Toyota 4Runner that you recovered from 114 Lake Avenue. What observations did you make of the 4Runner?
At the time,
I'm sorry? I'll give a little latitude.
Did you observe anything in particular about that vehicle?
I did.
What did you observe?
It had a layer of dust on it, and it had cobwebs hanging from the rear bumper by where the like a trailer hitch would go.
You could actually see the cobwebs?
Yes.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
We'll stipulate to the cobweb.
You recognize that photograph, sir?
I do.
Is that a fair and accurate representation of at least some of the cobwebs that you observed on that car?
Photographs, Your Honor.
All right.
Your Honor, just the photograph of the cobwebs, next number.
That is received.
Please placing exhibit 357 on the screen. Detectives, that show just some of the cobwebs you observed on the car.
That's correct.
And did you observe any dust or dirt on the car?
I did.
Detective, were you present when that vehicle was ultimately processed for latent prints at the Boston Police Department Crime Laboratory?
I was.
And in the course of your career as a detective, have you printed cars before?
I have.
Approximately how many?
Close to 100.
And in those 100 cars that you processed for prints, so first, what did you use to process them? What type of method?
Print dust.
And in the course of printing over 100 cars,
He's about to compare 100 cars that he's processed versus this result. Is it a statistical analysis? Is it reality?
Sustained.
were you aware of whether or not there were any prints recovered from inside of that car?
Yes.
What are you aware of?
There was one partial print that was recovered from the moonroof of the car.
And again, based upon your experience, was that level of rich detail inside of a car unusual to you?
Yes.
Calling your attention now, Detective, to other work you did at or around June 28, 2013. Did you apply for and receive a search warrant for the address of Ronald C. Meyer Drive in North Attleboro, Massachusetts?
I did.
And what address was that, if you recall?
The home of Aaron Hernandez.
And what were you searching for when you went to that home?
The clothing I had mentioned earlier with the 2 necklaces also.
And sir, were you aware of whether or not that address had previously already been searched relative to another investigation?
I am aware of that.
And were you aware of not whether any cellular telephones were recovered in that search warrant?
I believe maybe one was recovered. I think one was recovered.
Yes.
And Detective, in addition to the search of Ronald C. Meyer Drive, the home of the defendant, was another address in Franklin, Massachusetts, all for the same things you've talked about, the clothing and the rosary beads.
Correct.
And in the search of that home, where was that located?
599 Old West Central, apartment A12 in Franklin, Mass.
And was that also a residence that was rented by the defendant?
That is correct.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
You recognize that photograph, sir?
Yes, I do.
And what do you recognize that to be?
This is the building at 599 Old West Central.
Okay. Detective, showing you 2 other photographs. Do you recognize these, sir?
Yes, I do.
What do you recognize those to be?
This is the front door of apartment 12, and this is the interior living space.
And these are all of that address in Franklin, Massachusetts, an apartment you connected to the defendant, Aaron Hernandez.
Correct.
And this area was also searched for evidence, is that correct?
That's correct.
Was any found?
None.
Your Honor, asked these 3 photographs be stapled together and marked as next number.
Well, let's be consistent and mark them 357 A, B, and C.
We would object to the photos of an apartment where nothing was found.
All right.
Relevance?
Ladies and gentlemen, I will admit this evidence only insofar as it's relevant to the thoroughness or lack of thoroughness of any police investigation.
358 A, B, and C.
Now, Detective, I want to ask you a few questions, kind of switching gears and not as chronologically as we've been talking about now. I want to ask you some questions about your investigation into cellular phones that were belonging to the defendant. Calling your attention now to what's been entered as Exhibit 249F, which is a list of IMEI numbers for phones. You've had a chance to see that document, have you?
I have.
And in addition to this document, there's also another IMEI number relative to an Apple iPhone 4S. Do you recall that phone?
Yes.
And can you describe for ladies and gentlemen of the jury whether or not you engaged in efforts over the last number of years to find that phone, the Apple iPhone 4S, that was purportedly being used by the defendant at the time of the homicides of Daniel D'Abreu and Safira Furtado?
Yes.
And has that phone ever been located?
No, it has not.
And you've searched every address that is known to the defendant?
Yes.
And have you searched every vehicle that's been, either you or other law enforcement, searched every vehicle known to be owned by the defendant?
No. I haven't searched every vehicle, no.
But did you search the vehicles that you were aware of?
Yes.
And has that Apple iPhone 4S that was used by the defendant in July of 2012 ever been recovered?
No.
And calling your attention now to what I've just placed on the screen, Exhibit 249F, the BlackBerry phone that was being used by the defendant on February 13th, 2013. With all of the searches that you've done of the defendant's residences and or vehicles, has that phone ever been recovered?
No.
And Detective McIsaac, out of the numerous phones that are listed on those two documents of Exhibit 249, is it fair to state that only two phones, cell phones of the defendant, have been recovered in the course of the full investigation?
That's correct.
And neither of those were phones used in either July 2012 nor February 2013?
That is also correct.
Now, Detective, calling your attention back for a moment to the search warrant that was done on the 4Runner, did you make observations of the mileage of the car?
Yes.
What was your observation of the mileage?
It was 53,305.
I'm calling your attention now to gunshot residue stubs that were taken from that vehicle. Were you the one who transported those stubs to another agency?
Yes, I was.
What agency was that?
The state lab in Sudbury, Mass.
What date did you transport those?
It was in July. It was early July. The date escapes me. I think it was the 8th.
July 8th?
8th. I was going to say the 8th.
And the next day, July 9th, Detective, did you participate in the drive-by test of the Toyota 4Runner going by the cameras located at Club Cure as well as the Tufts Medical Center floating plaza camera?
I did.
During this time, Detective, we're now into July of 2013. Did you conduct various other interviews of civilian witnesses, including Gerson Lopes?
I did.
Your Honor, may we approach briefly?
You may. Mr. Hagan.
Thank you, Your Honor. At one point, Detective, were you successful in obtaining the cell tower records for the 562 number associated with Aaron Hernandez?
Yes.
Additionally, Detective, did you ever do any investigation relative to, once you learned that the car had purportedly traveled on the Massachusetts Turnpike, did you do anything relative to Mass Turnpike transponders and whether or not they had any information?
Yes.
What did you do in that regard?
I contacted the state police and had them check if there was a transponder assigned to that vehicle to Aaron Hernandez or Shiana Jenkins.
And did you get any results?
They did not have anything in their names.
Now, around the same time period, Detective, did you assist in the transportation of a firearm that had been recovered from a Jaylene Diaz Ramos from the Massachusetts State Police to the Boston Police Department?
Yes.
I'm calling your attention now, Detective, to October 8th of 2013. Were you part of an interview conducted pursuant to a proffer of Alexander Bradley?
Yes, I was.
Now, from an investigative standpoint, Detective, as the lead investigator on this investigation, prior to October 8th, 2013, did you have any information in your investigation from any source indicating that Alexander Bradley was the driver during the shooting of Mr. Furtado and Mr. D'Abreu?
No, I did not.
Prior to that date, Detective, despite watching the video, did you have any information relative to where the SUV you later learned was operated by Alexander Bradley was parked on Tremont Street prior to the homicides?
No, I did not.
And describe what you knew at that prior to hearing from Mr. Bradley.
Prior to Mr. Bradley's information, to us, the vehicle went straight down Tremont and made a right hand on Tremont after it turns into Sherman.
And had you observed what you thought was the same vehicle make two loops?
Yes, that's correct.
And after the last loop, where did you believe the vehicle went? Is that what you just testified?
I believe the vehicle had turned right on Tremont. When Tremont takes a right there, I believe that.
And without saying what he said, based upon the interview with Mr. Bradley, did your attention focus on a particular area of Tremont Street?
Yes.
What did you focus on?
Down by the YMCA, there are these red decorative awnings that are attached to a wall.
And was that position pointed out by Mr. Bradley?
That's correct.
Based upon the information provided by Mr. Bradley on October 8th of 2013, Detective, did you then watch the video more closely?
Yes.
And what did you observe on the video?
Observed the vehicle pull over, and you could see the brake lights.
Video speaks for itself.
Sustained.
Well, not for the truth of what you observed, but from your investigative mindset, Detective, did you see something on the video that led you to believe that the vehicle did not take a right on Tremont Street?
Yes.
Now, Detective, there's been some testimony in this case relative to Mr. Bradley coming to the grand jury on two dates, the first being October 18th, 2013 and October 25th, 2013. Were you present for all interviews of Mr. Bradley relative to that grand jury?
Yes.
And can you explain why Mr. Bradley had to come back on October 25th, 2013 from his original grand jury of October 18th?
Ran out of time. It just became late in the day. Jurors have to go home. I mean, there's a time limit.
And at that point, was Mr. Bradley being transported to and from Connecticut?
Yes, he was.
So to the extent that there are two grand jury dates, is it your knowledge that there were two completely separate testimonies, or was it all the same testimony?
I was
Continue.
same testimony, just on 2 days.
Now, Detective McIsaac, calling your attention again to this time period of early October into mid-October 2013 when you had interactions with Alexander Bradley. Were the interviews of Mr. Bradley, other than the grand jury, which is transcribed, were all of your interviews with Mr. Bradley recorded from beginning to end?
They were.
And were they recorded in their entirety, meaning was there any pre-conversations, or was the tape recorder put on essentially immediately?
It was always on.
And as of the time that you spoke to Alexander Bradley in October of 2013, from an investigative perspective, did you think there was any significance whatsoever to whether or not 5 shots or 6 shots were fired?
At the time, no.
And at that point, Detective, did you have any information or knowledge as to whether or not there was a tattoo with 5 bullets in it when you spoke to Mr. Bradley?
No, I had no knowledge of that.
So again, from your investigative mindset, did 6 shots or 5 shots matter to you at all?
No, not really.
And was there any steering or any efforts whatsoever to suggest to Mr. Bradley that he should say 5 shots rather than 6?
No, Mr. Bradley says what he says.
Calling your attention now, Detective, to investigation that you did and other detectives did to, in essence, vet Mr. Bradley's information. Did you, once you received his cellular telephone number that he had at the time of July 16, 2012, did you apply for a search warrant from a Superior Court Justice in Suffolk Superior Court for all cell tower records and call data and subscriber information for that phone?
I did.
And was that phone number 860-462-0830?
That's correct.
And once you applied for the search warrant, did that search warrant issue from the Suffolk Superior Court judge?
It did.
Was that search warrant delivered to Verizon cell phone provider?
It was.
And what was the response back from Verizon?
I received just that there was no data recoverable.
And does that have anything to do with the amount of time that that particular carrier retains data?
That is correct.
At or around that same time, Detective, specifically May 24th, 2014, did you apply for a search warrant for the cellular tower records of one Tanya Valderrama Singleton?
I did.
And similarly, was that served upon the company Sprint?
That's correct.
And was Sprint able to provide cell tower records for Tanya Cummings Singleton or Tanya Valderrama Singleton based upon it being now 2014?
They were able to give the subscriber call records, but I had no cell tower records.
And was that because they were only retained for a certain amount of time?
That is correct.
Anybody have one moment? Can I approach you, Mr. Ryan?
You may.
So I'm going to show you a 15-page document, and just tell me if you recognize that.
These are the phone records, call detail records for Tanya Valderrama Singleton.
And is that fair to state that that's not the entirety of the records, that's just certain records relative to dates in July of 2012, is that true?
That is correct.
And that is a 13-page document. Your Honor, I'd ask that this be marked as the next numbered exhibit.
Any objection?
The entirety of the records?
Excuse me?
Did I hear counsel correctly? Was it not the entire?
Your Honor, how about?
We have no objections.
Without objection, they're received.
Detective guys, I'm just going to place on the screen the 5th page of what's now been entered as Exhibit 359, which is Tanya Cummings Singleton's, or Tanya Valderrama Singleton's cell phone records. Just calling your attention now to this entry here, July 16, 7:42 a.m. That particular number, 860-462-0830. Is that a number you recognize?
I do.
And whose cell phone number was that?
That is Alexander Bradley's phone.
And does it indicate that there is a, at least according to these records on this Exhibit 359, appears to be a 9-minute phone call, at least according to these records?
Correct.
Now, Detective McIsaac, again, relative to any investigation you did concerning Alexander Bradley, did you ultimately recover a cellular telephone from Mr. Bradley's residence, and in particular his former girlfriend, Brooke Wilcox.
I did.
And when that was learned of, the existence of that, did Mr. Bradley consent to a full download of that device?
He did.
Did he provide that consent to you and other detectives?
Yes.
And prior to that, detective, had Mr. Bradley been cooperative in trying to tell you whether or not he could locate any cell phones that he had for the relevant time period?
He changed phones a lot. He didn't know where they were.
But did he indicate to you at any point that he would search or have his girlfriend search for any phones that they could find?
Oh, yeah, that phone, yes, that's correct.
Detective, I want to call your attention now to the grand jury process back in 2014, and in particular, certain witnesses. Were you present for interviews prior to grand jury testimony of Tyrone Crawford and Jarrell Pierre?
Yes.
And there's been some testimony, Detective, regarding pre-interview. Can you describe for ladies and gentlemen of the jury what your knowledge is of a pre-grand jury interview? And in particular, if that was done with Mr. Pierre and Mr. Crawford?
Yes, they were both done with both Mr. Pierre and Mr. Crawford. Pre-interview is you interview them prior to the grand jury testimony. It's for the prosecutor to know the answers before he goes into the grand jury, and also to give the person being interviewed an idea of what they're going to be asked inside the grand jury.
So just to clarify those points you made, Detective, so the pre-interview, who leads the pre-interview, the detectives or the prosecutor?
Depends. It's a combination of both. Sometimes the prosecutor, sometimes the detective. It depends on how it goes.
The pre-interview, does it take place in the courthouse, in the grand jury office, or does it take place somewhere else?
And on this, there's a 6th floor in this building. We have interview rooms on this floor, and they're usually done in there.
And are the pre-interviews typically recorded?
Not usually.
And you indicated that the purpose not only is for the prosecutor to know what's going to be said, but for the witness to know what questions are going to be asked.
Correct.
And have you had experiences, Detective, where a witness says something in a pre-interview that you felt the need to document in some way?
Yes.
And is the presence of police detectives for the pre-interview for the prosecutor for purposes of documentation?
Correct.
I'm calling your attention now to Tyrone Crawford. During the pre-interview prior to the grand jury, did Mr. Crawford ever express any memory issues that you recall?
Not that I recall.
And did Mr. Crawford in the grand jury ever request in your presence to be given immunity prior to testifying?
No, he did not.
Calling your attention now to Jarrell Amos Pierre. Were you present for his pre-interview when he came to the grand jury in the year 2014?
Yes.
And did Mr. Jarrell Pierre in 2014 indicate that he was requesting immunity prior to testifying?
He did not.
And are you aware that he recently testified in this trial and did obtain immunity?
I am aware of that.
At any point in those interviews in 2014 of Mr. Pierre and Tyrone Crawford, Detective, did you or other members of your squad or anyone in the room ever threaten Mr. Crawford or Mr. Pierre?
No, we did not.
Did you or anyone else in that room ever tell Mr. Crawford or Mr. Pierre what they should say?
No.
Did you or anyone in that room ever tell Mr. Crawford or Mr. Pierre other evidence, meaning what other witnesses said and what they should say?
No, of course not.
Calling your attention now, Detective, to a subsequent meeting you had in particular with Tyrone Crawford, I believe on or around December of 2016. Was there a point that you traveled to Florida relative to doing something related to this case?
That's correct.
What was the purpose in going to see Tyrone Crawford in December of 2016?
Our objective was to have him serve for an out-of-state subpoena.
And to have him serve for an out-of-state subpoena, did you feel that that had to be done in person?
Well, I wanted to also interview him again.
And in interviewing him again, what was the purpose of that, sir?
Felt he wasn't telling the whole truth the last time we spoke, so I was going to give him another opportunity.
And at that point, Detective, who else was present with you, and what were the circumstances of the interview?
Detective Anthony Williams.
And at that point, Detective, was that interview recorded?
Yes, it was.
And was that, to your knowledge, Detective, the first time that Mr. Crawford expressed significant memory issues?
He started 2 years.
Prior to that, had he ever indicated any memory issues whatsoever?
No, prior interviews, he was fine.
And Detective, to the extent that in that tape-recorded interview, Mr. Crawford suggested that he had been harassed by you and other law enforcement, correct?
Correct.
How many interactions had you even had with Tyrone Crawford other than the date in December of 2016?
Myself, one.
And to your knowledge, other detectives with your squad?
One additional one.
So in between testimony in the grand jury in 2014 and when you went to serve him with a subpoena in 2016, had there been any communications or harassment of Tyrone Crawford?
Harassments, no. We did go down there another time, attempted to speak to him and Mr. Pierre. We were unsuccessful.
Now, Detective, relative to the investigation into tattoos, you've already testified that when meeting with Alexander Bradley in October of 2013, you didn't have any significance to the number of shots being fired between 5 and 6, is that correct?
I take it this is foundational to something. You may answer.
No, I did not.
And at some point, Detective, based upon your observations of a particular tattoo Mr. Hernandez had, did you at least look at photographs of Mr. Hernandez to determine whether that tattoo was present in prior photographs?
I did.
Describe that, please.
The Super Bowl where they played, the Patriots played the Giants, there's a photograph of Aaron Hernandez wearing the Super Bowl jersey on the field. He's actually speaking on a phone, holding the phone in his right hand, and the tattoo is clearly not there.
And in addition to that photograph, did you and other detectives assigned to your team look at various photographs of Mr. Hernandez, any that showed his right arm, his right forearm area?
Correct.
And was, based upon those observations, had that tattoo, was that seen in any photographs prior to 2013?
Not to my knowledge, no.
And based upon those observations in your investigation, Detective, did you and other members of your squad enlist the assistance of the public in an attempt to identify the tattoo artist who imprinted the tattoo of the revolver, the words "God forgives," and the semi-automatic?
That's correct.
And the public requests for information, was that successful? Well, let me ask another question. Based upon the information you received in the investigation, how many different tattoo artists did you interview all over the country?
Myself, I did 4, 3 in Massachusetts and 1 in Florida.
And at some point, Detective, to in essence cut to the chase, based upon a review of phone records, did you eventually identify, or did members of your squad identify David Nelson of Hermosa Beach as the potential tattoo artist?
That's correct.
And based upon that information, was he subsequently interviewed, one of the interviews being done by yourself?
That's correct.
Now, Detective, as part of your investigation, at some point did you travel to the state of Florida to obtain records from an establishment known as Tootsie's Cabaret?
I did not. No, I'm sorry, strike that. I did go there once.
And are you aware that ultimately, pursuant to subpoenas that were issued, Tootsie's Cabaret did provide certain records relative to certain relevant dates?
Yes, that's correct.
May I approach the witness, Ron?
You may.
Detective, first I'm going to show you an 8-page document and tell me if you recognize that, sir.
Yes.
And what do you recognize that to be?
These are receipts from, it says Miami Garden Square 1, but it does business as Tootsie's.
Now, those records for February 11th, 2013 of transactions by one Aaron Hernandez with a copy of his credit card and his license.
That's correct.
Your Honor, that's at the 6-page document be entered as the next numbered exhibit, February 11th, 2013.
Without objection, that's received.
To the 360.
Showing you a 7-page document, Detective. I'd ask you to look at that and tell us if you recognize it.
It's records from Tootsie's again.
And these records from February 13th, 2013.
That's correct.
Those are, again, records just relative to transactions purportedly done by Aaron Hernandez, at least with his license and his credit card.
That is correct.
I ask that this document be marked as next number exhibit.
Exhibit 361?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to place a couple pages on quickly of Exhibit 360, just to see what we're talking about here. You indicated that Miami Gardens Square 1 is the same thing as Tootsie's, is that correct?
That's correct.
And this document, Exhibit 360, has a date of February 11th, 2013, 4:18 a.m., is that correct?
Correct?
It has certain amounts that were spent, is that correct?
Correct.
And this license appears to be the license of whom, sir?
Aaron Hernandez?
And the other pages indicate, again, receipts of amounts spent, is that correct?
Correct.
And signature pages as well?
Yes.
The next page that shows some additional transactions, again, the same date being February 11th, 2013, this time at 5:37 a.m.
Correct.
And amount spent,
Correct?
and again, the license and parent credit card of Mr. Hernandez.
Correct.
The back page is being the signature on those receipts, is that correct?
Correct.
It appears to be a third bill, also February 11th, 2013, 4:47 a.m. This appears to be a drink bill.
Correct.
Last page is being the same signature pages, correct?
Correct.
Now calling your attention, Detective, to Exhibit 361, the date on this being February 13th, 2013, is that correct?
Correct?
And the time listed is what?
3:49 a.m.
And the license and credit card on the bottom appear to be who, sir?
Aaron Hernandez?
This page here, which is the third page of exhibit number 361, does that also include the same date, February 13th, 2013, 4:42 a.m.?
Correct.
And does this appear to be drinks paid for?
Yes, a drink bill.
The next page is February 13th, 2013, 4:07 a.m. Does this appear to be payment for other types of services at the club?
That is correct.
And the license picture appears to be whom, sir?
Aaron Hernandez again?
Now, Detective, in addition to obtaining records from Tootsie's Cabaret or Miami Gardens Square 1 Incorporated, Did you also obtain records from certain hotels?
Yes.
Approach the witness, Your Honor. I believe there's a stipulation to introducing the hotel records both from La Quinta and Spring Hill Suites.
Yes, if you'll move it along.
Are you offering those?
Yes, Your Honor.
Let's receive them in order. Which is first?
Yes,
La
Your Honor,
Quinta?
we do have Spring Hill Suites. There are pages of documents covering February 10th through February 12th of 2013 in the name of Aaron Hernandez. I'd like that to be one exhibit.
Let's receive that. Exhibit 362.
That's at 363B, one receipt for one Deontay Thompson, the date of February 11th through February 12th of 2013.
Without objection as to either one?
None whatsoever.
Very good.
And one more exhibit, Your Honor, being a receipt from La Quinta in the name of Aaron Hernandez, La Quinta Hotel in West Palm Beach for the date of February 12th, 2013.
364.
The detective, you're aware, pursuant to the investigation conducted into this matter of whether or not certain financial documentation was also subpoenaed relative to Aaron Hernandez.
Correct.
And did you become aware from the investigation that Mr. Hernandez had certain accounts with Merrill Lynch as well as Bank of America?
It's several with Merrill Lynch and yes, a Bank of America.
And did you obtain some documentation, at least relative to the dates in question being the July 2012 area as well as the February of 2013 time range?
Correct.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
May we approach?
Apparently.
Detective McIsaac, is it fair to state that as part of the investigation, you did review the financial records of Mr. Hernandez?
Yes.
And did that include determining whether or not there were various charges in February of 2013, specifically the week of February 13, 2013, in Florida, in the Palm Beach, Miami area?
That's correct.
And were there in fact transactions suggesting Mr. Hernandez had used his cards in that area at
Yes.
that time period?
That's correct.
And similarly, did you check the financial records of Mr. Hernandez for July 16th, 2012?
I did.
And was there any relevant information in financial records, meaning transactions with credit cards?
None whatsoever.
Detective McIsaac, you also, did you deliver evidence to an expert named Michael Haig in Albuquerque, New Mexico?
I did.
Did you stay with that evidence at all times when it was delivered to Mr. Haig and then transported back?
Yeah, I kept it with me on the plane, delivered to Mr. Haig, took custody of it back, and took it back on the plane.
And Detective, calling your attention now to what's called the iCloud. Did you apply for any search warrants relative to an iCloud?
I did.
And for those who may not know, Detective, what is an iCloud and what relevance did it potentially have to this case?
iCloud is maintained by Apple for your Apple devices. If you back up your devices, all your information is saved in a cloud. It's called the cloud. It's just it's a server basically, but it's called the cloud. But you have to back up your devices for the stuff to be saved in the cloud.
And at this point, when you were looking into the iCloud, had you had any success in finding the Apple iPhone 4S purportedly being used by the defendant on July 16, 2012?
No, I never found it.
And what, if any, relevance from an investigative standpoint did the iCloud potentially have for you?
Any backed up data from the phone hopefully would be in the cloud.
Did you apply for and receive a search warrant to be served upon Apple Incorporated relative to iCloud data for the particular iPhone 4S that was purportedly belonging but now missing of the defendant Aaron Hernandez?
That is correct.
And was that search warrant for iCloud data ultimately issued by a Suffolk Superior Court judge?
Correct?
Was that served upon Apple Incorporated in California?
Yes, it was.
Was that search pursuant to the search warrant successful in obtaining any data?
No, it wasn't.
And from your understanding, what does that mean as far as the iCloud?
The device wasn't backed up.
Now, Detective McIsaac, calling your attention to the Toyota 4Runner and your interviews with Alexander Bradley. At some point, based upon the information that Mr. Bradley had provided, did you attempt to have not a reenactment, but did you attempt to see if an officer of similar size and weight could fit out of the Toyota 4Runner in a similar fashion that Mr. Bradley described?
I did.
And were there two separate instances where you conducted that examination or that test?
There were two separate incidents that were conducted, that's correct.
And the first one, do you know when that was, sir?
The date escapes me. It was I think it was like in October or November of 2016. Is that correct?
If I just quickly place something on the screen, and does that refresh your memory?
Yeah, November 2016.
And describe what was done, Detective.
We had to charge up the battery for the 4Runner to get the windows to work. We had a police officer, Clifford Davis, he's 6'2", 243 pounds.
And let me stop you there. He's 6'2", 242 pounds?
443 pounds.
How many pounds?
243.
243.
Correct.
And how does that compare, at least to your knowledge, of what the defendant Aaron Hernandez's height and weight was on and around July of 2012?
He's listed as 6'1", 245.
So this officer is bigger?
An inch taller, 2 pounds lighter.
And what was done, sir?
We had Officer Davis sit in the passenger seat, climb over. We had another officer in the driver's seat, with and without an officer. We did it both ways. Had him climb over and go out the window.
And what was the purpose in having him do that?
From information received from Alexander Bradley, we want to see if a man his size could do that.
And was this test that you've described, was that videotaped?
It was.
In addition to being videotaped, was it also certain portions of it photographed as well?
It was.
Can I approach the witness, Your Honor?
You may.
Showing your thumb drive, Detective, you're aware of the video that's contained on that thumb drive.
Yes, I am.
Is that a video of the test that you've described that was performed on November 18th, 2016, relative to the forerunner that you just described?
Correct.
It's marked as next number to Your Honor.
You're offering it as an exhibit?
Yes, please.
No objection? It is received.
Detective, I'm also going to show you two still photographs. Do you recognize those, sir?
Yes, I do.
And are those still photographs of what's been marked at the video, the last numbered exhibit, the test that you conducted on November 18th, 2016?
Correct.
I'll just place one of the photographs in this next numbered exhibit, Your Honor.
Any objection?
We have no objections on this, and specifically on the video, we have no objections based on the representation that on the thumb drive is only the video of the reenactment.
I believe we've come to an understanding on that. The video that was just entered as exhibit number 365, a portion of it will be played now. Mr. Baez and I will discuss another portion if it needs to be read. And we would ask that the photograph be marked as exhibit 365A.
All right.
For the record, Detective, I'm going to play 365 first. The card that we see here, does this just indicate the date?
That's correct. Date and location.
And is it fair to state the video videotapes various angles of the car? Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I've now fast forwarded to 4 minutes and 22 seconds. Can you describe who's inside the car right now?
In the driver's seat is Detective Anthony Williams, and in the passenger seat is Officer Clifford Davis.
Again, the height and weight of Officer Clifford Davis was what, sir?
6'2", 243.
Now, Detective, what we just observed occur, were you present for this when it happened?
I was.
And did you observe Officer Clifford Davis have any difficulty maneuvering himself out of that window?
None whatsoever.
Is that you in the background there, sir?
That is me.
Now, Detective, at some point after conducting that test that's just been entered as Exhibit 362, did you bring still photographs of the officer, particularly the one I just entered as 362A, to Alexander Bradley to determine whether or not that seemed consistent with what he had observed the night of July 16, 2012?
Yes, it was done, yes.
And based upon information that Mr. Bradley gave you, did you then or other members of your squad conduct a second test?
Yes.
And in the second test that was conducted, can you tell us the size of the officer used for that test?
It was Officer Jeffrey Lopes of the school police unit. He's 6'1", he weighs 210 pounds.
I'm just placing on the screen what's already been entered as exhibit number 299. This officer here, is that Officer Lopes?
That's correct.
And he's how big again?
6'1", 210.
Is that generally consistent with the size and weight of the defendant?
Height, not weight.
And was the test conducted in a similar manner, meaning a police officer in the driver's seat, leaning the seat slightly back, and the officer then coming out the window from the passenger seat?
Correct.
And exhibit number 300 is also part of that test?
Correct.
Exhibit 296, does this show the difference that was done in this test relative to the conversation with Mr. Bradley?
Correct.
And what differences do you see?
The hand on the center console.
And Detective McGuire, are you aware of any difficulty that Officer Lopes had in getting out of the window?
It doesn't appear so. I was not there, though, but it doesn't appear so.
All right, Mr. Hagan, are you going to move on to some
Yes.
other area? Where do we take our morning races?